Okay, good morning, everyone. Um, I understand this is a strange hour and not so much of a strange day for the channel. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. I saw this article the other day, and it struck me as being somewhat significant to the Mandela Effect and the Mandela Effect community. And the reason why is that it was its title basically said impossible discovery found on remote island off African coast, a lost part of the world. And oftentimes I keep putting these kinds of articles on my Twitter feed, and I don't really often talk about them on my channel. And it dawned on me that I needed to start talking about these kinds of articles because they flow really well into probably an unexplored part of the Mandela effect. And that is these unrecognized Mandela effects that are happening all around us all the time. And I know the typical way in which the Mandela effect is executed with a lot of channels is they talk about those typical Mandela effects, and then they go into whether or not people remember them or not, or people talk about whether or not um, you remember the Mandela effect. And even I've done those things, and certainly this is not a judgment on that kind of material. I've done that kind of material. I've argued, particularly the Ed McMahon Mandela effect and the Publishers Clearinghouse. I dedicated multiple videos to that. But I also dedicated multiple videos with our exploration of World War II and us finding that indeed, if you dig deeper into history and parts of World War II, you will find anomalies that have either not been reported or they change in this kind of moving kind of framework that we can't quite comprehend or understand. And it wasn't until I started to get into these CIA documents that I started to put all of the pieces together a little tighter. So what I want to read before I start getting into the article is I want to preface this with the original, the Psychotronic Universe CIA FOIA document. And though this isn't part two of the original Psychotronic CIA document series, it is a piece of it that I read off that I thought was pretty significant for this particular article and a new way at looking at the Mandela effect. I just want to say good morning to everybody, by the way. Hey, how are you? Hello, Eric, Amy, how you doing? I appreciate everybody here on this strange hour. Darren, Sevens, 333 Kingdom, Valcor 73, thank you. Cushnex, Kushnasty, McDabs, I appreciate you being here. Everybody, thanks a lot. Oh, and Santo, thank you very much. If I miss anybody, I do apologize. But anyway, the document goes to say the new science and information science. And this is like I said, it's a part of the psychotronic universe. It's towards the back here. And it says here, in the last few decades, phenomena have been reported worldwide which do not conform to the framework of modern physics and have presented a considerable crisis for our science, that is, our rational perception of the world. The author would like to think that the origin of such confusion in our knowledge goes back to Newton's mathematical principles of natural philosophy. On the basis of the thesis, Newton added indicating the primary factors of gravity and pleaded that he could not but exclude uh, something which permeates and is concealed within matter in general, and that is the spiritus of function of consciousness. So it says here, in fact, Newton is said to have had all but failed to develop a theory of gravity using a matterless ether, i.e. consciousness. So how does that play into this article? So the point of the article isn't that it actually totally pivots on what I just read here. And the point of the article isn't exactly the totality of the argument I'm going to make here. But the point of the article is that there are different, this is a perfect example of all these smaller Mandela effects that are probably happening. And they're being reported in mainstream media, but because they don't have the language, and then we have the language, but we're not connecting these instances to the Mandela effect, it doesn't help, our case being an ME and having personal Mandela effects versus worldwide Mandela effects. And I would like to say that I think there's the possibility that there's all kinds of these different Mandela effects happening all the time that we're just not picking up on. And there has to be ramifications to a lot of these Mandela effect categories, particularly technology before its time and the geo shifts that we have. Now, we know that the Mandela effect is connected in part, if not all, to the Schumann resonance and the frequency spikes that happen between the Schumann resonance and the frequency spikes that happen within the human body. And I've have multiple videos that go into that, talk about that. So that's not really anything that's entirely new. Fortunately, this article is pretty short. I know it's a mainstream media article, and I know that it's a Fox article. I just want you to say that this channel is a nonpartisan channel, and that I only picked this because it was something that I was reading at the time. It could have been NBC. I'm going to grab from any article that will further the case of the Mandela effect. So let's get into the article. It says here, researchers have found rocks on a small island between Madagascar and the eastern coast of Africa, a discovery that has been described as mysterious for one very important reason. They shouldn't be there. So these rocks should not be on this particular island. The rocks in question, quartzite, were discovered by researchers at Columbia University, thanks to a grant from the National Geographic Society. They had heard about them from a number of different media reports, but were finally able to confirm the presence of the quartzite, which is usually found in areas that have high temperatures and pressures for themselves. This is contrary to plate tectonics, says Cornelia Klass, a geochemist at Columbia University, in a blog post titled "Quartzite Bodies Do Not Belong on Volcanic Islands." So let's stop right there. A lot of things happen right there. So, first, what they're saying is that this shouldn't be happening. Okay. So, it shouldn't be happening at all, which that's fine that science likes to say those kinds of things of what should be or shouldn't be happening. But the fact is, it did happen. And I know I rail on and on about science and scientism, but ultimately, it's not about science itself. It's about the sort of political and economic arm of science that has become sort of this de facto kind of invisible political faction that is probably more powerful than most governments around the world. So the point is that these scientists are saying these things aren't supposed to be there, but again, they are there. And if we go back to this part of the unclassified CIA FOIA document, they were pointing these things out as early as the late 70s. Now, the psychotronic document itself is, the point that they're trying to say is that consciousness needs to be part of the equation. It needs to be a variable that's included in the equation of what makes existence. But that's fine. That's fine. But the point is they understand. Scientists are not admitting, but they understand something isn't right. Something is off. Now, being an MB, ME, and being Mandela affected myself, naturally, I'm going to veer towards what? The Mandela effect, particularly whenever I read an article like this. There was probably a geo shift and something happened within that particular geo shift, and voila, you have something that defies science. What I think is that these geo shifts and these shifts in general are going to continue. And as they continue, what's going to happen is more and more articles like this are going to accumulate. My biggest fear is that no one in the Mandela effect community puts that together and starts to put a kind of coherent timeline or library together of these announcements that have happened, and to say, okay, sure, this one particular article, that's fine, this one particular article doesn't prove anything about the Mandela effect. However, if you take the Mandela effect, you take the theory of the Mandela effect, and then you take these particular articles, and with those you take these, CIA documents and all kinds of other literature that's out there, and you put it together, and suddenly you can realize, fine, if you don't believe in the Mandela effect, or you don't believe in um, whatever it is we're saying, you can at least agree that something is not right in terms of your understanding of existence and reality and how it's supposed to be reacting, how it's supposed to be behaving. Because the way that this article is written and the way that these scientists are um are writing it, it's almost as if they're admonishing reality for defying their laws. And I just want to I just want to concentrate on that and think about that for a minute. You know, we have a community so powerful that not only do they expect governments to bend to their will, they expect that reality to actually bend to their laws and their formulas from which they've drawn upon. Now, I do understand there's many layers below this and that this is just one article. But again, I've posted many articles that sort of have this kind of bend or tone to them where they're saying that, these laws are being broken. Well, reality is reality and consciousness is consciousness. And if you read the other document that I put in there, the CIA FOIA gateway process, it talks about reality itself just being a hologram of consciousness that springs forth from our mind. Before I go on, let me take a look at the. Oh gosh, a lot of people showed up. Thanks everybody for showing up on such an off hour. I really appreciate everybody. Baked and awake, how you doing? Hey, Julie's back. Okay, and okay, Julie. Sally, hello. Who else do we have here? Amy, thank you for showing up. New start. How are you? Patrick Roberts, our new timeline. How you doing? Thank you for showing up, everybody. Let's see. We've got Conscious Machine 413. Thank you. Appreciate that. So the point I'm making about the reader. Hey, how are you? So the point I'm making about this is that I want to start building um, articles around Mandela Effect shifts and geo shifts, and not just pointing out individual instances from technology before its time, but trying to really take the mainstream narrative and actually incorporate it as a thread that we can weave into the broader Mandela Effect canon. Leveling it up, taking it to a new level. And to be able to add that to our arsenal. Recently we started adding the CIA literature to our canon. And I think we were leveling up there. The entire community, I think, can benefit from some of the research this channel has done and some of the research that perhaps they can do now by knowing that you can dig through the archives of the CIA and their FOIA requests. And we can extract meaning from that. And that's really, really wonderful. So let's see. Svetlana, haven't seen you in a while. I appreciate you being here. Lost in Space 247. Hello, how are you? So it seems like everybody is starting to show up. So what I was talking about was this particular document or this particular article. It's a mainstream media article, but they're saying an impossible discovery found on remote island off African coast, a lost part of the world. And and what they say is this is contrary to plate tectonics. And what they're talking about is this quartzite. It's discovered in a place that it's not supposed to be, and it's breaking all kinds of scientific laws and particularly geochemist laws that it's breaking. And I think a lot of these kinds of laws they're going to be broken all over the place. And why I like this particular article, it's something more tangible. Oftentimes I'll talk about laws that are being broken at the quantum level. And what I want to do is kind of pivot a bit more onto articles like this that are more tangible, that a law has been broken, that scientists have discovered that the world wasn't exactly what they thought it was. And the reason why is it's twofold. One, like I said, we can add it to the thread of our overall Mandela Effect community canon, that these things and some of the arguments we can talk about is not just C3PO's leg, or like I talked about, I went on this tangent about Ed McMahon for a while, and it didn't dawn on me when we went through our World War II discovery phase. As we started to go through all of the articles, all of the literature about World War II, we were shocked to find out that indeed history was nothing like the way it was presented to us. Now, was that ignorance on our part, or was it a Mandela effect? That can still be argued. and that's fine, and I'll take that criticism, and I'll take that critique, and that's fine. However, when you have over and over again veterans or children or grandchildren of veterans that simply said that didn't happen, that adds credence to the fact that there wasn't Japanese shelling off of the coast of California, and now there has been. There wasn't shelling of Japanese shelling off the coast of Washington or Oregon, particularly Oregon. It got hit the hardest. The fact that there was 280,000 prisoners of war that were captured, and they were put on what was in Papua New Guinea somewhat of a death march, and the fact that one of the most um, humiliating points in British naval history was the surrender of Singapore to the Axis forces. So I just wanted to, and at the time, I hadn't put those two together, that we could actually add this as an ongoing point to look out for as part of the narrative of the Mandela effect, is things like this, more tangible bits of science that's out there, because they're always contradicting themselves when it comes to more, etheric kind of things. You've got, quantum, theories and things like that. And obviously that's pretty much changing all the time. So let me get into this chat as I go on here. Let's see, what have you guys got here? So yeah, chemtrails. Yep, I always do the chemtrail thing. I always take pictures whenever, you can always tell too when they've chemtrailed. It's pretty obvious. Guys are getting into the more chemtrail things. Okay, so let's see here. Julie says Wikipedia controlled. Right. Snopes controlled. Miss Media, CIA, Mockingbird. Well, Julie, um, I appreciate your opinion. ME is not a mental illness. Well, I mean, ME is simply noticing the world around you. And if you look at these CIA documents and you read them, you can understand and have a better footing whenever you argue about the Mandela effect to other people and use this literature. And like I said, if we level up and start adding to our overall mosaic of the Mandela effect, we can take articles like this. When people say, well, science is always wrong. And that was the second prong I meant to talk about, is science is constantly contradicting itself. Laws are constantly being broken in science, constantly. And this is a perfect example of that in this article. So everybody that's just showing up because the audience just leaped a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just reread this real quick here. It says, researchers have found rocks on a small island between Madagascar and the eastern coast of Africa, a discovery that has been described as mysterious for one very important reason. They shouldn't be there. Can you imagine the hubris of science saying that a rock shouldn't be somewhere? But anyway, never mind that. The rocks in question, quartzite, were discovered by researchers at Columbia University thanks to a grant from the National Geographic Society. They had heard about them from a number of different media reports, but were finally able to confirm the presence of the quartzite, which is usually found in areas that have high temperatures and pressures for themselves. Quote, this is contrary to plate tectonics, end quote, by Cornelia Klass, a geochemist at Columbia University, in a blog post titled Quartzite Bodies Do Not Belong on Volcanic Islands. And then it goes on to say, the quartzite makes up one half of a mountain on Anyuan Island, a 400 square mile island that is part of the Comoros Islands. Like the Hawaiian island chains, the Anyuan formed due to volcanic eruptions, which makes the presence of quartzite on the island all the more interesting. Quote, all those years, it had bothered me that I didn't understand how these rocks got there. Klass told Live Science. The presence of quartzite is not the first non-volcanic rock to be found on the island. Live Science added, in the 1980s, there were scattered outcroppings of quartzite, but nothing like the discovery Klass and her team found in September 2018. Now, it'd be interesting to see if in September 2018, what kind of spiking was happening and what kind of Mandela shifts we all were talking about, particularly the geo shifts around September 2018. Maybe I can get up with Chick and during the Lost and Found bin on Saturday at 2 o'clock Eastern and ask her about that and see if maybe she remembers anything significant. I don't know if I journal, but I don't know if she journals about these kinds of things. It says more information and study is needed to determine just how much quartzite is on the island, as well as determine where it came from. One explanation has been continental and tectonic plate drift, but the chemistry of the volcanic rocks on the island don't correspond with any association of a continental crust, Live Science added. So there you go. And they say this is what nature. Let's see. We're going to go ahead and I don't know. Hey, conscious machine. It's just best to. We don't. I mean, the language. I try to keep that, to a minimum. So I appreciate that. I try to keep it as friendly as possible. Um, the moon within Earth's atmosphere. That's a perfect. That's a perfect example. That's a incredible example. Hey, dead GPK, how you doing? Glad you're here. Um, yeah. So that's a perfect example. That's a big example. And that's something that everyone picked up on. But we also have small examples like this that I want to start adding to that canon, particularly ones that can help out with um, um, already noticed Mandela effects that are sort of the foundation, like these geo shifts. This, eventually when you have these geo shifts, there was bound to be evidence like this coming out, and everyone will be able to look at this evidence and do something with it. And by the way, this show, we now take live chats, or we now take super chats. So if you would like to donate to the show, I'd appreciate that. It helps out with the research and it just helps out in general. So anyway, the point about it is I think that going on from here, I'll probably end up doing more videos, and they may be smaller and more bundled, tighter bundled videos whenever I come across articles like this. And if anyone out there wants to hit me up on Twitter about particular articles like this, and it doesn't have to be something as major as the moon being in Earth's atmosphere. I mean, every channel is going to pick up on that. What I want to be able to do is lay down 40 or 50 articles where science is either, claiming that, well, they're claiming the rules are broken. Rather, I would like to look at it like they were wrong, which would help with the but science argument. Um, because science itself, I've always argued, has become something that is much bigger than really governments. And much more powerful in a lot of ways. I mean, scientists can pretty much tell whatever body, Congress, Senate, I mean, Parliament, whatever country you live in, wherever it's at, they can tell these people because they're the experts and people will believe them. But all the time, these laws are being broken. And I know it's anecdotal, but, we talk about that, the doctor, if you could go back to that video, a doctor got a hold of me and, he was, charged by the amount of prescriptions he was given, by the DEA, and he served, federal prison time. And he was telling me it wasn't the molecular structure of the medicines, the opioids that he was prescribing. It was the way in which the human body was reacting and the way in which, and the way in which sorry, I'm also he sent me, additional information, and I wanted to talk about that here as well, talking about, new ways in which our body is reacting. The medicine isn't changing, or the molecular structure of the medicine isn't changing, but our bodies are. And it was with I thought it was an inhaler, the stats with inhalers, but it's, let's see. He talks about shoot, I can't find it. Let me see here. Here we go. All right. Inhibitor cough side effects is 25% when those anti-hypersensitive were released. 10 years later, the side effects was down 5 to 10% at most. Same medication, same molecule, different human beings. And one of his more compelling arguments was the percutaneous kidney biopsy, which I go on to explain in the other video, talking about the doctor that got a hold of me. It was a very cloak and dagger situation. I got a burner phone. It was very cool. Very cool. So, Anyway, folks, that's what I wanted to talk about here really quick, and that's I wanted to get in more articles like this, and what I do is see your Svetlana. I'll go ahead and let you share that. Uh, uh, Conscious Machine 14, 413. Did I use language you don't approve of? No, what I have is certain words you can put into, and what it'll do is go show or hide. And then, that's just part of the way the software works, and all I did was, I didn't approve it because I'm just trying to keep it, the big words, the big curse words, just trying to keep them out of the chat is all it is, and I was just letting you know that that's how it works around here, that's all, no big deal. Hello, horses, not zebras. So that's really all we got right now. If you could give me a thumbs up, that would really help out a lot, and that would help out with the channel. And hopefully Conscious Machine 413, that is okay. Um, I'll leave and not come back, nerd. Okay, well, there you go. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Like I said, what I'm gonna start to do is bring up individual articles in tighter, smaller, um yeah, Conscious Machine, it's fine. I mean, it's stay or, that's fine. Um It's either way, that's it's not that big a deal. I don't think it's an all caps offense, but, whatever. Um, see what we got here. Thanks a lot, Lost in Space 247. Anyway, thanks, Baked and Awake. Okay, everybody, like I said, more tighter, episodes here, and what I wanted to do was talk about really important articles like this, less ethereal, they're not very etheric, you can get in there and understand what they're talking about, and I left the link in there. I also left the CIA documents. We're still gonna do a real deep dive. We're continuing part 2 of our deep dive on the psychotronic universe, so please stick around for that. But this was just something kind of light and breezy and something I just thought was important. I wanted to get it down before I forgot about it because, like I said, I normally post this on Twitter, but I'm going to post this here because I think it's a great thread that we can add to our canon in the Mandela Effect community. So, Conscious Machine, yeah, you always use caps. Okay, noted, got it. Um, Baked in away. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So that's it. That's all I got for now, everybody, and I will talk to you later.